Welcome to this explainer. Usually we think of history as being driven entirely by individuals, right? By powerful politicians making choices in grand rooms. But picture a dark world map slowly lighting up. Taiwan, Ukraine, the Strait of Hormuz, the Himalayas shimmering beneath fresh snow. What if geography itself is the invisible puppet master here? What if beneath the daily headlines, the map is the thing actually pulling the strings? It really makes you wonder, what if the next global conflict has already been drawn, not by politicians, but by geography? Do leaders truly make history from scratch, or are they just repeating the inherited fears of their physical borders? Think about Donald Trump studying the two oceans protecting America, Vladimir Putin staring across the open plains leading toward Moscow, Xi Jinping looking out at Taiwan, Narendra Modi looking up at the Himalayas. Four leaders. Four civilizations, one invisible force connecting every decision: Ukraine, Taiwan, the Himalayas, Hormuz, Malacca. Are these just separate, isolated crises? Or are they really just chapters of the exact same story? Let's dive in and see how mountains, rivers, and narrow straits are quietly dictating the highest levels of global power. Section 1. Taiwan, the Pacific Key. So this is the island President Xi absolutely cannot abandon, and the one America simply cannot lose. From a distance, it looks pretty small, but the struggle here goes way beyond its coastline. To Beijing, Taiwan is unfinished history. It's an unresolved wound from a century of humiliation, and literally a geographical barrier trapping China behind what's known as the first island chain. But to America, Taiwan is the ultimate strategic anchor. Losing it wouldn't just mean losing a defense point. It would shatter the credibility of all American alliances across the entire Pacific. In our source's imaginary dialogue, President Xi makes a profound point, saying, a civilization cannot be reduced to a deal. Think about what that means. For China, Taiwan isn't about economic cycles or temporary political leverage. Not at all. It is tied to the restoration of Chinese sovereignty across generations. It's an inherited historical mandate written into the geography itself. Now contrast that deep generational view immediately with Donald Trump's perspective in this exploration. His take? Ambiguity works until somebody decides to test it. From this angle, it's all about leverage, tough negotiation, and strong deterrence. The idea here is that peace doesn't survive just because people have good intentions. It survives when the other side believes the cost of crossing a border is simply too high to pay. Section 2. Ukraine, the vulnerable plains. Let's shift our focus to the vast, wide-open plains of Eastern Europe. The key concept you need to understand here is strategic depth. Basically, that's the physical distance between a nation's core centers, like Moscow, and any potential military threats on its front line. You see, there is no massive mountain wall protecting Moscow from the west. Every Russian leader inherits this deep geographical memory of invasion across those open plains. That lack of natural defensive barriers is exactly what fuels Vladimir Putin's deep-seated fear of Western encroachment. And this creates a truly tragic security dilemma. Russia looks at NATO moving eastward and sees an absolutely intolerable strategic threat that eats up their necessary geographic buffer. Conversely, Ukraine looks at Russian aggression and says, well, this is the exact reason we need Western protection in the first place. They are relying on their fundamental right to choose alliances as a sovereign nation. Every single step one side takes for security just deepens the insecurity of the other. It's a total diplomatic nightmare. Henry Kissinger captured it perfectly in the text, stating, a policy based only on moral principle can ignore strategic reality. How on earth does the world balance Ukraine's absolute moral right to independence against Russia's geographic proximity, nuclear capacity, and that inherited paranoia? It's a massive collision of human rights and cold, hard geography. Section 3. Himalayas, the water wars. Moving east, the looming confrontation between India and China isn't actually just about land anymore. It's over the world's most critical resource, water. And the power dynamic here flows downstream. China claims upstream control, asserting its right to develop dams on the Tibetan Plateau. But India faces terrifying downstream vulnerability. We're talking about nearly 2 billion people relying on rivers that originate up there. New Delhi harbors this deep fear that a sudden drought or engineered flood could literally be weaponized by a neighbor, putting billions of lives at risk. The 14th Dalai Lama points out a beautifully profound truth in the source material. The river possesses neither passport nor army. Climate and living systems just completely ignore our political borders. Snow falls in Tibet and flows down into India. When you view water through a lens of military suspicion, suddenly every dam becomes a weapon, and every dry season feels like an attack, turning these shared rivers into a ticking clock.
Right in the middle of this immense pressure, Prime Minister Modi takes a very firm stance on strategic autonomy. His famous declaration? India will choose India. He represents a civilization that is absolutely determined to rise without becoming dependent on either the East or the West. India refuses to be a subordinate pawn, even when rival blocs are demanding loyalty.
Section 4. Choke points, the global arteries.
Let's transition from the heights of the Himalayas down to the narrowest, most fragile waterways of our oceans. A choke point is basically a strategic bottleneck where global trade and military movement can be easily halted. Places like the Strait of Hormuz, Malacca, or the Suez Canal. These tiny geographic features allow relatively small actors to punch way above their weight class and hold massive global empires hostage. Just watch the domino effect of a choke point crisis. It is incredibly fast. Step 1, a shipping route gets blocked or mined. Step 2, insurance risks and costs instantly spike. Step 3, the entire global supply chain grinds to a halt as ships refuse the route. And Step 4, markets panic and prices for food, energy, and everyday goods soar all over the world. The whole thing can happen in a matter of days.
And the crazy part is that what we're fighting over in these geographical spaces is rapidly evolving. The 20th century was defined by oil pipelines. The early 21st century shifted our focus to rare earth minerals. Fast forward to the mid-21st century, and freshwater is going to be the ultimate prize. And looking even further into the future, the melting Arctic is going to open completely new, highly contested trade routes, rewriting the entire map of global power once again. Section 5. Who controls the future? As we zoom out and look at all these pulsing global trade routes, the source material leaves us with this incredibly powerful thought. History gives us geography. Character decides what we do with it. While the map absolutely dictates the pressure points, the plains, the straits, the islands, the rivers, it is human wisdom, diplomacy, and character that actually have to step up and prevent the next great war. We aren't permanently imprisoned by our geography, if we choose to navigate it wisely.
So, as the trade routes eliminate our globe and the lights begin to pulse faster and faster, I want to leave you with this haunting question to wrap up our explainer today. History remembers presidents. Maps remember civilizations. Which one is really shaping the future? Think about that the next time you look at a map of the world. Thank you so much for joining me.